What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Gear Garden. This week we are comparing two famous tents, the Durston X-Mid One and the Gossamer tent, The One. Like I said, guys, today we're talking about those two legendary tents. I got my buddy Dylan here. He's going to be helping us out with the review. Okay, first tent we're talking about here is the Durston X-Mid. It is a double wall trekking pole tent, two vestibules on each side, easy entry for both sides. We have the mesh inner, and then we have the sill poly rainfly here, which is really nice because it's two pieces, less condensation, super good for water resistance. This tent also weighs about 32 ounces, give or take a couple. You only need 4 stakes to actually pitch this tent out completely, just the 4 corners on the initial setup, but I prefer it with 6 because I like it to look flush when it's all zipped. We also have 2 vents on each side for extra ventilation. You can choose to take these on or off, whatever you like. I always tend to keep them open even in the rain. Doesn't seem to be too big of an issue with water, and it's really, really nice to keep the fresh air blowing through. So as you can see, the tent fits me, but it doesn't fit much else, which is okay. I always usually have my pack at the foot end of the tent, and especially because we use frameless packs, so when all my gear is out of it, there's really nothing else in there that I need to worry about, and it kind of helps add an extra barrier of my feet, or I can use it as a headrest like my buddy Dylan does. My quilt does touch the mesh on all sides of the tent, which if it's super moist out, I'm sure I will get a little bit of water on the quilt, but it dries relatively fast. And like I said, the headroom, I'm sitting up in here, but the back of my head is touching. The front of my face is about 3 inches from here. This has the cool geometry, which fits under this well, but as far as living space goes, in order to really maximize the space in this tent, you do need to open up both of these. And on a day like today where it's clear and sunny, you can just open up both sides of this tent and you got air breathing right through all day. And yeah, I mean, I love this tent. So it also has 2 pockets up here. You don't need to see them, but they're cool, they're small. They're just enough. You don't need a lot if you're ultralight backpacking, which is what this is designed for. So overall, it's a killer tent. Next tent we're talking about is the Gossamer Gear The One. This tent is a 1-door, 1 big vestibule tent. It's got a tiny half vestibule on the back. I suppose that's to save weight. The tent itself, the body weighs 17.7 ounces, which is about half the weight of the Durston. But what you don't have is you have 1 piece of tent. There's not 2. It's a single wall tent with the nice bathtub floor that gives you the option to stake that out as well, so you have a more rigid bathtub floor. The tent minimum stake pitch is 6. Preferred with 8 if you want to add extra head and foot room over there, but you have the option to stake it out with 12.
All right, guys, as you can see, I'm in the Gossamer One. So with this, you have a lot more extra headroom. You easily be able to like change your shirt without hitting your arms or anything like that. Another good pro about this tent has double tie back, so you're able to pull these out, and especially if you're in like a nice, scenic area, you could have your breakfast, have your coffee, be able to look and still be in the comfort of your tent. So if you look over here, I normally like to have my backpack at the front of the tent just because I'm like 6 foot tall. So if you have a 72-inch pad, typically your feet are gonna hang off a little bit. So if I could put my pillow up a little bit higher, then I'm gonna be able to fully like stretch out, which is nice. And this one is tapered down. So from the front, what is it, 30?
I think it's 38 or something like that.
38
21.
Down to 21. So it does definitely funnel down, but it still fits a 25-inch pad.
So the next thing we kind of want to talk about is the pros and cons of each of the tents, because they both have pros of both and they both have cons of both. It just kind of depends on the preference. For example, like, what do you think about the single versus double wall?
Yeah, so when it comes to like the Durston, the fact that it's a double wall tent makes it less prone to condensation.
Yeah.
But then the Gossamer, it's single wall and almost half the weight, right?
Yeah. So it's half the weight because you have half the tent though. So it's like, it depends on if you're okay with dealing with condensation, because you're still going to get condensation in a Durston, especially if it's super windy and super rainy. It still potentially could drip down onto the mesh, which then makes everything heavier. And that did happen to me last time I used this tent. It's not the end of the world, mostly because when you're using a trekking pole tent, I think it's just expected that you're gonna have condensation.
Yeah. But then another thing with like the Durston that's really cool is like when you lay it out to stake it out, it's the diameter that it's going to be at,
Yeah.
versus the Gossamer, it's going to expand out, and because you need to use a lot more stakes to like make sure it has the right amount of headroom.
Yeah.
You know, that's like another, I would say, like pro and con.
Yeah.
Pro of the Durston being like has a smaller footprint, but then it has smaller amount of headroom.
Yeah.
Or the
When you sit up.
Yeah, when you sit up and then like changing and things like that. Where the Gossamer is going to have a lot more headroom.
Yeah, that tent top on the Gossamer is a lot more broad. I think it's like 46 inches tall, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And the Durston claims to be, I think, 43, but it's more of a weirdly shaped geometry pyramid inside, versus that is like you sit up and you have the ability to literally roll around in your tent, stretch your arms out. Where that would be the other pro of this, though, is that you have two doors. So you have the option to roll these back and keep this rain fly shut. So even mid-storm, you still have the ability to kind of stretch out and move around, but you have to unzip and tie everything together.
So another good pro about both these tents in general, right, is that you could set them up easily like in the rain, versus a traditional tent, you're going to have to set it up first, then put the rain fly on top.
Yeah.
So when you're in, you know, potential storm and you're trying to set up shelter quickly without getting all your stuff wet inside, you know, these tents definitely help with that.
Yeah. And also, they're just fast. And most people, if you're backpacking, you're bringing trekking poles anyway. And it doesn't seem like it's going to help you a lot, but having much less weight in your pack really does help you a lot. And it's one less thing you have to worry about breaking, because sometimes tent poles are super delicate, especially like the DAC Featherlight poles that come with most new tents. You kind of snap it or lean it the wrong way, you have a super big problem if that snaps, unless you have something to fix it out there. In which case, like most trekking poles are pretty durable, and they're not too expensive, but they're kind of expensive. It depends on which ones you have. There's options. So overall, I think it's just kind of a good weight savings and save pack space too, because these tents can pack down really, really small, like the size of a pillow, versus, you know, another bigger tent like a Nemo or REI, Big Agnes, don't get nearly the same size naturally. You can compress them, but it's just not quite the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks again for watching the Gear Garden, guys. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below, share this video with your friends. If you like either one of these tents, if I said something different you might not agree with, please leave the comment down below. Thanks again. See you next time.